I hope that tonight's class is going to change everything for you. I will tell you that tonight's class is guaranteed to work only if you apply it. I'm really going to give you the secrets from the sources of how to access focus during prayer. And even now that you know them and you're going to have some amazing prayer experiences, you will still find that there are times where you just don't do the things you're supposed to do and you just have another bad prayer. But you will know how to have a good prayer. Okay, you will know how to access that connection in a real way. Okay, so let's just talk for a few minutes about prayer. It's really important to understand what a gift prayer is. So I'm going to go back to a source that many of us have heard before. Okay, so when God punishes the snake, the serpent, God gives a very odd punishment if you think about it. God says, you know, you're going to crawl on the ground, blah, 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 blah. And you will eat what? You will eat the dust of the earth. Now, what is interesting about being punished, that the food that you will need is the dust of the earth. There's something very interesting about that punishment. See, what's interesting about that punishment, of course, is that there's a blessing in the curse. What's the blessing in the curse of being able to eat the dust of the earth? There's never any shortage of dust. I am discovering this as I Pesach clean. There is never any shortage of dust. There is always going to be dust. So there is a blessing in the curse. And the truth is that if you look at the curses of Adam and Eve, I'd love to do a class on this one day. Maybe we will. Oh, we can, I guess. We might do a class on the blessings in the curses, because it's incredible who we become as a result of the curses that we got given back in the day. They are so formative, and it's very interesting to see what happens in society when you avoid the curses, and how that doesn't do humanity much good, because God is very caring, and therefore the curses are formative. Here, there's really no reason to educate the snake. So why is there a blessing and a curse? So if you look one level deeper, after you've noticed that there's a blessing in the curse, you also notice that there's a curse in the blessing. Okay, so the curse is you will eat the dust of the earth. The blessing of that is you will never go hungry, and the curse of that is what? That you'll never go hungry. Why is that a curse? Because God is saying to the snake, you will never need to ask anything from me again. Bye. Bye. It's a story of the king who has 3 sons, but one he really likes. So at the beginning of the year, he gives everybody a gift. He gives the first son $100,000, and then he gives the second son $100,000, and then he gives the third son, the favorite son, $10,000. So the third son says, Abba, excuse me, Your Highness, what's with the missing 0 over here? So the king says to him, you I want to see again next week. Okay, I'm not giving you too much. I want you to come back for some more, okay, because you're the one that I like. God gets rid of the snake. You will never need me again. You have all your needs taken care of. That's actually a much deeper blessing than the curse, that much deeper curse than the blessing of never going hungry. So we have this principle, which is going to really turn the way that we look at the world upside down, which is that if we have all our needs met all the time, we're disconnected from Hashem. And that it is our very needs that create the opportunity for connection, because by our nature, if we have what we need, we don't ask. We're fine by ourselves. We don't really bother God if everything's going really, really, really well, until we train ourselves to bother God to say thank you when we're grateful. But most of us don't do that. And the Gemara talks about this idea that if you go for a very long time without anything getting in the way of your life, no interference, no bother, that you have to wonder whether God's upset with you, that he doesn't want to hear from you. I was walking down my street. I'm going to say something very strange, but it's quite Ilana-esque. You'll hear me say strange things. You have to just bear with me. But I was walking down my street and I saw these cats. And I thought to myself, what do cats do if they need a tissue? You know, like, maybe cats don't need tissues. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Cats never use tissues. And of course, this got me thinking about the other few things that cats don't use either, like mascara, or lunchboxes, or homes, or cars, or mortgages, or clothing, or cupboards, or kitchens, or anything. Like, they just kind of walk around and go into the garbage and hang around and exist. Their life is so uncomplicated. You know, even if they're hungry, they just go to the garbage, they find something, and that's it. What do they do all day? Absolutely nothing. They get into fights. They attack each other a little bit, and that's it. But they have they have so few things in their life, and they have so few things that can go wrong in their life, except from getting killed. But whatever. They have so few needs in their life. They just carry on their little way, you know, not needing God particularly. And if God forbid, in a situation, especially let's say I'm in public and I need a tissue and I can't get hold of that tissue, like my world's fallen apart. Like, you do not want to be giving a class unable to access a tissue and need one. That is a very difficult situation. It's not good, right? The things that we need so much. So we have these amazing things that happen all day long where there's an opportunity to ask Hashem for help. There is, I hope the food doesn't burn. There is, I hope I get there on time. There is, I hope I manage to exercise today. I hope my friends are happy with me. I hope that the weather's great. I hope I get everything done. I hope my credit card doesn't go, you know, blocked when I'm shopping. There's so many things that we have needs about all day long. And we have come to view needs from a very materialistic place, which is that needs are a problem. So I want to teach you, and it's such a deep, important recognition that you have to look at needs from the opposite of a materialistic place. You have to look at needs from a spiritual place. Needs are incredible. They connect us to Hashem. Without needs, we would not naturally have a reason to connect to Hashem. And therefore, when you have a need, you have a blessing. When something goes wrong, it's a tiny little opportunity and reminder to turn to Hashem. When we look at needs from a materialistic point of view, there's something wrong and there's something missing. When we look at them from a spiritual point of view, it is the easy reminder to connect to Hashem. And the concept of prayer is every time you need Hashem, you turn to Hashem and you talk to Hashem. And the reason that they instituted real prayer is because if you are obligated to turn to Hashem when you have a need, how many hours of the day is that? It's 24 minus your sleeping hours. So that's a very unquantifiable time of prayer, okay? Because if you think about it, well, let me think about it. I need to breathe. If Hashem doesn't sustain my breathing, then I would die. So I need to thank Hashem now, and I need to ask Hashem now. It's all day long. It's all day long. So they reduced the time of prayer to the quantifiable, which is, depending on your custom, three times a day, 2 times a day. Some people will say women at least once, whatever your time for prayer is. And the most tangible thing that constitutes that quantified time of prayer is the Amidah, is the standing prayer, the silent prayer, the Shemona Esrei, it's called sometimes because it's made out of 18 separate blessings. And this is where we have trouble. Now, some of you may be ADHD, and some of you may be dyslexic. So I am technically neither until I start my silent prayer. And then I can completely relate because I become ADHD and dyslexic and all the rest of it. I cannot connect words to each other. I'm in the middle of one blessing and then I skip and I don't know where I am because I can't even remember if I said those bits. Have you ever had that experience when you were walking along the beach, you know, in this beautiful faraway town, and suddenly you felt a pounding on your chest and you realized that you were in the middle of Slach Lanu? You know what I mean? Okay. Now, hey, I know that you're all muted, but raise your hands if you know what I mean. Abigail, don't raise your hands, you're driving. Okay. Raise your hands if you know what I mean. We have this unbelievable thing whereby we can concentrate usually, and when it comes to this, I mean, really, it's a 3-minute prayer, for goodness sake. We become so disconnected from the ability to just stay with the words. It's phenomenal. There is a phenomenon going on. And most of us just develop this very horrible relationship with prayer. I remember one of the rabbis saying at the beginning of the coronavirus, this is wonderful, you're going to be able to stay home and put more time into your prayer. And I'm sure a lot of people would have just thought, oh no, oh no, I have no excuse now. I can't just quickly rush because I'm off to do good things, like longer time in prayer, like help, right? Well, maybe some people didn't think that. I know that it came into my head, right? So we have this weird thing that happens, which is however good we are at being able to focus when it comes to other things, when it comes to prayer, something weird kicks in. And it does. It really does. It's not you. There's a weird thing that kicks in. And today we're going to understand what it is, and we're going to solve it. I'm so excited to share this with you. I was teaching this class once to a group of women, and there was a woman there who, she's much younger than me, but she's a prayer teacher, and she came up to me furious after the class, and she said, I've been teaching tefillah for 10 years. Why hasn't anybody taught me this? And my response was, it's okay. I've been trying to pray for 30 years and no one taught me this either. So you're in good company. This is the basics for successful prayer. Everybody has to hear this, pass the message on. Because without this, you cannot focus well during prayer, and not unless you've accidentally done the things that you were supposed to do. So this is going to be really, they talk about doing chesed during this time. My chesed is to share this with you. It's a tool that will completely, really completely change your experience of davening and of prayer. Okay, so I remember once being in school, and we had a very firm teacher. We were in a very normal school. Normal means how I grew up, yeah. But what that means in this case is kind of like, I guess the English equivalent of modern Orthodox, which is modern Orthodox, but nobody knew it was called that. So that's how I grew up. And we were in this school, and one of the teachers was really firm. Like, he kept all the mitzvah and everything, right? And he was giving us a class. And the whole conversation was about whether, television is a good thing or a bad thing. So we knew that he thought it was a bad thing, and we all did it as a matter of practice. Really, what is the winter holidays without Mary Poppins? Like, really, you got to get real with life. So one of the girls was trying to push him, and she said to him, can you prove to me, can you prove to me that there's any problems with watching a movie? So he said, well, when was the last time you watched a movie? So she said, well, last night. And he said, and how long was the movie? And she said, I think it was 119 minutes, it said on the box, So back in the days where you had videos. And he said, and were you able to concentrate during that time? And she said, yeah. He said, okay, when was the last time you davened the Amida? And she said, this morning. And he said, oh, well done. And how long did it take you? And she said, I don't know, about 2.5 minutes. And he said, and how many times did the Yetzer Hara disturb you during that time? And she was like, 5,000 times the whole way through. Because it's interesting that the Yetzer Hara didn't need to disturb you when you were watching the movie, So that was the end of that conversation. So we all walked away, grumpy, because he has succeeded in his mission. Anyway, it's amazing how many times you can get disturbed while you're in the middle of prayer, and here's why. So, has anybody experienced one of those beautiful prayers that they were great, they were glorious, they just felt amazing? Nod your head if you have. Okay, so what is it about a prayer that makes it feel like it was a really good prayer? You know what it is? It's exactly the opposite of what I'm describing. It's the ability to connect from beginning to end, feeling completely undisturbed in your thought process. Tell me if you agree with that statement. I'm nodding my head on your behalf. Nod. Yes? Okay. When I was in the prayer and I was connected and the words flowed and I felt it, that was a good prayer. Now, that is a very irrational answer. It's a very irrational answer, albeit true. It's an irrational answer because really, what is a good prayer? It's like this. Dear God, please can I have $1 million? Knock, knock. Oh, look, there's a postman. Oh, look, there's a check for $1 million. Ta-da! That is a good prayer, right? When I ask for something and I got what I asked for, then I can turn around and I can say, you will not believe what happened. I had the most unbelievable prayer. I asked for $1 million, and then there was a knock on the door, and there was a postman who delivered a check for $1 million. Like, wow, that is a very good prayer. But we don't say that. We don't say I had an amazing prayer when I asked for something and it was given to me. We intuit correctly that an amazing prayer is one wherein we are completely connected. I think about how weird that is. What difference if you were connected? If you ask something from Hashem and it gives it to you, then you know Hashem was there. What difference does it make to you if you were connected? I'll tell you a story. Once I was running a trip, and there was a conversation that was happening between two people. One was like an educator and one was a student, as it were. And I said to the educator, how was that conversation? And the educator said, it was phenomenal, fantastic. I can't even begin to tell you what a great conversation we had. I said, oh, that's nice. Half an hour later, I saw the student, and the student is bawling her eyes out and crying, what's wrong? It was the worst conversation I ever had. I'm so upset by what I was told, So what's going on over here? The educators is I guess, talking to themselves and loving what they're hearing. And whatever the student is hearing was something completely different, completely offensive, a total disaster. That is not a successful conversation. The success of the conversation is not in how well I spoke, right? The success of the conversation is in the dialogue, in how well it was received, what happened as a result of that. If I make a good pitch, it's really a good pitch if there is a good response to the pitch. So what does that mean? I had a good conversation with Hashem because I could hear myself talking. Why is that proof of a good conversation? And again, it is. This is the cool part. It is. But why is that proof? Surely a good conversation really is dependent not just on what you say, but what on the other person hears. And of course, the problem with that is like, well, how do I know what Hashem hears? How do I know what God hears? Of course, I know that God hears everything. But how do I know that this was a really good conversation? And here's where God has put in this unbelievably helpful technique, which goes as follows. God says, I can hear everything all the time, but you're going to need to know whether this prayer really went through, whether this prayer really connected. And I'm going to give you a mechanism that you will intuitively understand is a sign that this was a real two-way dialogue. You spoke and I heard you. And it's going to be like this. Because you can't see what's going on my end, you will know if this conversation is successful, meaning if I was really present and I was really hearing it based on the quality of your delivery. Meaning when I have an Amid and I'm completely unfocused and I'm not there, and my sense is that was a bad, that was such a rubbish prayer. I prayed so badly. I feel so disconnected. You're right. It wasn't a connected one. And when you have one where you feel so present that you can feel the connection to every word, that is God telling you that was a great prayer. I heard every word. I'm right there with you. So we have this amazing way, even though there's an invisible recipient to this conversation, as it were, we have a way of knowing whether the conversation went through. We have a way of knowing. Have you ever had that time when you're on the phone to someone and after like a minute, you're like, they're listening so beautifully, you are just suddenly opening up and pouring out your heart out. And after 3 minutes of really sharing your feelings, you hear them go, oh, hi, sorry I lost you. You know that feeling? And you're thinking like, gosh, they're listening so well. Of course they're listening well. They can't hear a word you're saying. They haven't interrupted you for the first time ever, right? They haven't heard a word you're saying. You felt you were pouring your heart out, but they went on the other side of things, right? And it's like, oh, forget it. Never mind. Don't worry about it. And then, of course, when they are connected, they just interrupt and they don't listen, yeah? So Hashem has given us a mechanism to know whether he's listening. And the mechanism to know whether Hashem is really listening is whether we feel ourselves connected. So of course, this brings a question, obviously, which is, what do you mean whether Hashem's listening? Of course Hashem's listening. Hashem's always listening. Yes, Hashem is always listening. Maybe. What do I mean by that? if you were able to completely focus on your prayer, then you know that Hashem was listening. And if you weren't, that means Hashem wasn't really listening. So then we're going to answer that question I asked in a second. So then how do I ensure that Hashem is listening? By being completely having kavanah, right? By completely being intent on my prayer, then I'll know that Hashem was listening. So of course, how do I get kavanah is what I need to understand. How do I make sure that I have got the kind of prayer that God is listening? And here's the truth of kavanah. And all this information comes from Rav Shimshon Pincus's beautiful book called The Gates of Prayer on prayer. And of all the things I've ever read on prayer, this was the most important piece I've ever come across, because this is how you get kavanah. He says, you can knock your head against a brick wall 100 times in a row, and that will not give you kavanah. You can sit there staring at the words all day long and still not be able to connect your baruch to your atah. You can see the words, you know what each word means. I had a very satisfactory experience of teaching a group of Israeli girls this class, and I said to the girls, right, even though this is your mother tongue, you still can't connect the words? And they said, it's unbelievable. This is because we all like to blame on the fact that it's in Hebrew. Oh, that's why prayer is so hard. No, no, no. They have the same kavanah block that we all have. The kavanah block is a block that anybody who experiences prayer has. And it doesn't matter how hard you work at kavanah, nothing will help you. I've tried every trick. I remember once having such frustrations with kavanah that I decided that I was going to become a signer. Okay, I was going to invent my own sign language, and it would be like Boneh, building, Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, to force myself into be able to concentrate. I wouldn't get past one word until my hands had made some kind of like made up sign language, and it still didn't work. Nothing works. Says Rav Shimshon, you can kill yourself over this. Kavanah is not something that you are capable of getting by yourself. You can only get it as a gift. You can only get it as a gift from Hashem, as it were. When Hashem wants you present, he gifts you with the ability to be present in your words. And that's called kavanah, which is why you'll notice that it's not a matter of how hard you worked. Usually prayer is blocked, and every so often it just flows, and it flows with abundance. It's such, you can fall into the words. They're so beautiful. You're so present with them, because sometimes Hashem says bing, kavanah, and sometimes, mostly, Hashem will say no. So that's not fair. I always want kavanah. So what do I do to get kavanah? Again, remember what kavanah is. Once I focus on those words, then I know that Hashem is listening. I always want that in my prayer. So if kavanah is a gift, how do I make sure I have it? And the beautiful thing is that it is not a random gift. It is a gift in exchange for something that you can do. Okay, it's a coin. You give it the money and you get the coin, and the coin goes into the machine and the machine works. Doesn't matter how many coins you put in. That's not how it works. You need to put in the voucher, and the voucher has to be paid for. But you can get kavanah every time. You just need to know how. And that's the end of the class. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, now we have to understand how do we get kavanah. Hashem wants to give us kavanah. Obviously, Hashem wants us to be present in all our prayers. Hashem is open to listening to us all the time. But there is something that we need to do. And if we do this, then we get kavanah, and it's guaranteed. It's guaranteed in Tehillim that we will get it. Tehillim, Psalm number 10. I'll give you a little game. You can look and see which verse you think it might be. If you're like a nerd who likes homework, and if not, you can ask me and I'll tell you. But assuming that you're all nerds, you can look up which verse in Tehillim number 10 is a clue to the fact that if you focus, Hashem will help you. What do we need to do to get kavanah? And again, it's so important to know this. What you don't do to get kavanah is try really, really, really hard to focus. It will not work. You've tried it already. It hasn't worked. It's not going to work. This is what you need to do. You need to do something completely different to kavanah. Kavanah meaning focus. You need to do something called hachana, meaning preparation. hachana, preparation. And we're going to outline the 3 steps of preparation. Step number 1 is a willingness and appreciation and desire to be completely present because you understand what it is that you're about to do. I remember, I try and do I try when I remember, and it's amazing how often I forget to do this. On a Rosh Chodesh, I try and pick something to work on for the month. And sometimes I have lots of time, so I pick really like intense things. And often I don't, so I pick really little things. So I remember one month, I was far too overwhelmed to pick anything that was time consuming. So my resolution for the month was, I'm going to stop saying, oh, I have to pray now. And I'm going to start saying, oh, I get to pray now. Just that little change. Okay? Because it sounded so rude to me to be saying the whole time, oh, I have to pray. Oh, it's mincha, I've got to pray. Oh, I've got to daven. The sun's setting down. I have to pray, I'm making it sound like I'm doing Hashem a favor, which I know is wrong. So I just switched the language. That was my effort for the month. Which is, I'm going to change my language from I have to pray to I get to pray, or I want to pray, or something that makes it sound like I'm being a little bit less obnoxious in my attitude towards prayer. So the first thing that we do is we stop and we recognize what it is that we're about to do, and we have to change our attitude towards prayer with that mindset. I wanted you to imagine that I had a telephone that I would be willing to lend to you, and listen to what this telephone does. You can dial a hotline straight to God, and you can have a conversation and tell God what you want. How much would you pay? How much would you pay to use my phone? Would you pay more than $10? You would pay more than $10 to use my phone for a direct hotline to Hashem. Am I correct? Okay. Here's my phone, everybody. How much would you pay? Oh, I have to daven. Like you're doing God a favor. We have to stop and tell ourselves, well, hold on a second. I actually get to commune I get to commune personally with the Almighty. Put yourself into what kind of mindset you would be in if that was a real thing. I remember hearing this beautiful story of a lady in an old age home, and every morning she would put on her makeup and get no visitors. And one day one of the nurse attendants sort of said to her, like, it's so you know that you're not getting any visitors today. She said, yes. So she said, well, why are you putting your makeup on like that? And she said, well, because I'm getting ready to pray, my dear. Like I'm about to have a conversation with my Creator, right? And I'm not suggesting that you have to put lipstick on to daven. Okay, that's no new halachas coming out of this year. Okay, but this idea of mentally, I have to pray. I get to pray, and spend a moment in that space before you begin your prayer. Just be shahia, being in that space of what am I about to do? How blessed I am that I'm about to do this. Step number 1, and stay in that space. I always try and stay in my space before I begin my prayer, before I rush into my Hashem Svasai Siftach and open. Before I rush into that, I try and stop just for a minute and say, wow, what a privilege. And then you got to do step number 2. What's step number 2? Step number 2 is have the decency to clear your mind of all the other things that are preoccupying you just for the next few minutes. Be completely present and available for Hashem. So now here's where I lose people. Ha, 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 ha. Just clear my mind of all the things I have to do. So yes, clear your mind. And this is what I do, and it's very, very helpful. There are usually I don't know, somewhere between 7 and 10 things that are pressing on my head, things that I have to do that on my schedule. And what I do is I sort of say to them, I know you want my attention. I will be back. I'm not asking you to go away. I'm just letting you know I'll be back in about 5 minutes. just wait for me. I'm unavailable, okay? Mothers are good at doing this because when they need a break from their children, they go to the bathroom to pretend that they need to urinate, okay? They don't really need to. They're just hiding from their children for 5 minutes of privacy, okay? 2 minutes, children. I'll be out in 2 minutes, okay? So this is what we do. We're practicing for motherhood over here. We do this to our thoughts. We say to our thoughts, I know you want my attention. I need to talk to Hashem first. I'll be in a much better position to deal with you and all your demands of me when I've had a couple of minutes of privacy between me and Hashem. I'm telling you now, whatever you want from me, I will do better if Hashem has answered my prayers. So hold on. I'm not saying go away. I'm just saying wait. Back in 5 minutes. Yeah, that sign that they put on the door of a shop. Back in 5 minutes, whatever they put there. And by the way, when you're in prayer, when I do this physically, because when you start your Amida, you take 3 steps back. So what I do is I look at all the thoughts that are in my head and I take 3 steps back. I back away from them. That's how I visualize it. I'm in my head, and then and my thoughts are right in my head, and then I walk away and I disappear out of my thought space. For 5 minutes, it's a practice that we can all do. We can not allow our thoughts to take over our minds for the entire time. We can say, I am taking myself and my focus away from you. I am making myself available to this prayer experience. That's the 3 steps back. And then before we take 3 steps forward, we have to do one more step, which is to recognize not only that it's a privilege to talk to Hashem, not only to be present to talk to Hashem, but also to remember what it means that we're talking to God. It means that we are going to ask of the being that could give us everything we need, what we need. I have to allow myself to be a little bit breathtaken by the possibility of asking my needs from the being that wants to and can give me all my needs. And with that sense of trepidation, that sense of tremendous privilege, there should be a buzz in that feeling. I then take my 3 steps forward into presence with Hashem. You kind of feel a little bit like Queen Esther as she moved towards the king with a sense of trepidation, except that you know that the scepter's coming and it's a good king. But that sense of, I backed out of my head, and now little me is going to talk to my Father who loves me, who can give me everything that I want. And all those thoughts together is called hachana. It's the sense of, I have really emotionally prepared myself for this experience. I've intellectually cleared my mind. I've given the respect to this interaction with Hashem. The worst Amida I ever had, this is so bad, I'm going to make such a bad confession over here, was my omelette Amida. I had 2 minutes left, and 2 things needed to be accomplished. One is an Amida, because it was almost sunset, and 2 was an omelette, because my son needed an omelette, and there was 2 minutes before he had to leave for his bus. And I couldn't decide which one was more important, so I did both. I stood by the gas cooker, I threw the eggs on, 3 steps back, tried to dub them for a couple of paragraphs, flipped the omelette. It was not a moment that I'm proud of. I didn't know which one to do. I tried to do both. Okay, that was not a respectful Amida. I'm not proud of this moment. I'm just letting you know that we all have our moments, okay, where it was just like, and I'm sitting there thinking like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, I should have just forgone the prayer completely. This is such an embarrassment. And guess what? It wasn't a great surprise. It wasn't a good prayer, as I was telling, busy making an omelette. Now, it is also true that Rashi says that, what's more important than prayer is taking care of other people's needs. That's also true. But it wasn't a great prayer moment, because I wasn't giving this my all. I was just in another place at the same time. But we do that often. When we're in our thoughts and we're thinking about other things, we're just making an omelette in our mind. we're saying to Hashem, of course I'd love to be with you, but not really, because I'm actually thinking about my bills and my tests and my kids and my house and my Pesach cleaning and my blah, 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 blah. So maybe I'm not making an omelet with my hands, but I'm making an omelet with my head in terms of how not present I am. Hashem is always available to us. All we need to do to get the gift of focus is to return the favor and to put a tiny little bit of effort into being available for the conversation, as if it was a privilege to talk to the creator of the universe, who can give you all your needs about your needs. Just pretend like that's a privilege and give the time and attention it deserves. When you put the preparation time in, and I'm not describing the hour that they used to do in the old days, they had borrowed it for a whole hour to prepare for this. I'm talking about a mental state of, I want to be here, 3 steps out of where my head was, calming my mind down, 3 steps forward into recognition of who it is exactly that I'm about to talk to. And then this is what will happen. You do that work, and you will open your mouth, and suddenly the prayers won't be in gibberish anymore. Suddenly they'll read and they'll flow, and when you say them, it'll make sense to you, because Hashem has gone to you, boom, you did such a nice job in being prepared for this conversation. I bless you with the gift of focus. You don't have to try, you don't have to work hard. You've already done that by wanting to be in this conversation. You're going to get the ability to be present. You're going to feel me, because I want to listen to you. You know what you did to make me want to listen to you? You wanted to talk to me. You wanted to talk to me enough to not be making an omelette, neither with your hands nor with your mind when you were preparing for this conversation. That's all I need, says Hashem. I'm here if you're here. And if you make yourself here, Hashem will allow you to be here, thus knowing that he was listening with as much focus as you are. And that's the secret to focused prayer. And it will work every time you try it. This is not a cute thing. This is a guarantee from the Tehillim of how to get Hashem to bless us with kavanah.